Okay, apparently I'm live. Hi, good afternoon. It's Friday, October 16th. It's 1 p.m. Pacific time. And this is Daily Star Trek Views. Hello, I'm your host, Alison Pitt. I also host Daily Star Trek News, of which this is the natural progression of. Welcome. If you're in the chat, say hi. I would love to hear from you. On today's show, we are going to talk about a few things, actually. We will get to Star Trek Discovery. I did manage to watch it at 7 o'clock this morning just so I could be ready. um, and I'm actually interested in hearing what you guys have to say. So I'm going to do a different story first. And if you want to just, yeah, Dan, for this very reason, Discovery talk will come later in the live stream. So if you guys, um, that's an interesting point. Okay, Dan, don't pay attention to the chat then. Because I was going to say, put questions or comments in the chat, and then we can talk about them later in the rest of the show. And we'll try to leave it so that you can bow out if you don't want to talk about spoilers. Oh, Wes, you're killing me. I will talk about that, and I will talk about season 4 very shortly. First things first, actually, I just wanted to mention that Virtual TrekCon 2 is going on right now. This one is a sort of a virtual Star Trek convention that's put on by the folks behind the Seventh Rule podcast, so Sirach Lofton and Ryan T. Husk. And they do kind of a thing called the promenade, which is like vendors get to host Zoom calls, and you can stop by people's booths and say hello. We are actually having another booth on Saturday morning. Chris is going to be hosting that one, and I believe it's at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 Eastern. So go check that out. Double check the schedule from that's on their website. It's virtualtrekcon.com. There's a lot of really great programming, and some of the really big panels they're going to do like repeat plays of. I know the one it might actually still be going on, so I kind of feel bad. That they're doing they've got a diversity in Star Trek. It's got Michelle Hurd and Raven Dowda and a couple of other people in there too. So there's some really great stuff going on in Virtual TrekCon 2, and you should go and check it out. So that's out of the way. I also wanted to just mention still that if you like what we're doing here on the show and you're not already a patron, then please consider contributing to us on a monthly basis. We have a Patreon page at patreon.com/Daily Star Trek News. Anything that you contribute from $1 upwards is gratefully received. So thank you very much. Also, along those same lines, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what we do and like behind the scenes, I'm currently putting together a video on my other YouTube channel that's talking about the stats and like the numbers behind the show. So look out for that. I'll tell you about that more at the end of this show. And yeah, let's start talking about the news. So one of the things that I like to do on this show is actually talk about the biggest stories of the week, and I gauge that based on website traffic, social media engagement, and YouTube views. YouTube is a funny place because it's the search engine and the way the algorithm. There's a real distinction between content that is popular and content that is like fine. By far, the biggest driver of views this week was Joe Biden's Trek the Vote event. Now, I didn't go to the whole thing. It was pretty long, and I was doing a billion other things because have you met me? Yeah, but I did tune in for a little bit to hear Stacey Abrams talking to some of the women of Star Trek, and it was really inspirational. It was a wonderful time, and I'm glad that it went well for that campaign. And that was really, I mean, everybody wanted to like the Trek the Vote. People wanted to learn more about. To my knowledge, you can't watch it back. I looked a little bit. I didn't look hard. I don't know whether because I contributed to the campaign and got my entry, whether I can still go back and watch that. I'm not sure. But long story short, that I actually did the article, the story a couple last week about how there's Trek the Vote, the Joe Biden thing, and then Trek the Vote, the nonpartisan initiative. Um, and that story people are still picking up and learning about. So that's interesting. But I'm not going to talk about it this week because it's actually old news by now. Yeah. What I do want to talk about, outside of that one, the biggest story of the week really is STLV being, I don't want to say canceled, but it's like this, it's kind of halfway between canceled and postponed, because the long and the short of it is it's been pushed back now to August of next year, round about the same time it would have been this year had that not been delayed because of the pandemic. But the thing that is generating a lot of chatter is the fact that they seem to have lost their official status. And they said that in their announcement. They've renamed it to the, what is it? I'm reading Creation Entertainment Presents 55-Year Mission Tour. And it's still a specifically Star Trek event. I actually don't think it's going to be that different. By the way, I have no insider knowledge. I don't expect it to be a hugely different from STLVs in the past, but they did say specifically that CBS is not an official sponsor of the event, and that was kind of mixed feelings on it. A lot of that chatter seems to be happening on Facebook, and I don't have a Facebook account, so I haven't really been paying much attention. But it's the thing that stuck out. And since this show, Daily Star Trek Views, I can go crazy on rumors. Some eagle-eyed internet savants have noticed that if you go to the ReadPop website, one of the first big graphics on their front page says, wait, I'm going to bring it up, which I can't show you because technology, but I want to quote it properly. I have to wait for it to cycle through. Boldly going where no one has gone before. And if that isn't a hint that they're about to drop some news about a Star Trek convention, I don't know what is. If you remember back to 2016, ReadPop actually put on, I forget what they called it, but it was it was like an STLV, but it was in New York City. It was in October, so it was later. Mission New York, that's what it was called. It was for the 50th anniversary. ReadPop put on Mission New York, and of course, ReadPop is just gigantic. Let me see. I'm just going to look at their events page really quick to just give you an example of the kind of events that they put on. They do Star Wars Celebration. They do PAX. They do Comic-Con Paris, New York Comic-Con, MCM Comic-Con in London, Crunchyroll Expo, which I've always wanted to go to. Basically, they put on some really, really big events. So if they were to take over the official Star Trek convention, it'd be really interesting to see what happens with that. But, nobody said anything. So you'll know when I know. Well, you'll learn 8 to 12 hours after I learn it. So there's that. But I'm glad to see that that Creation is still going to continue to put on the Star Trek Las Vegas convention. I hope it does well next year, and I hope it continues, because for many of us, the STLV is kind of like a mecca. And as much as we all bitch and moan about the Rio, it has its charms. It's kind of like a second, or it's a second home for a lot of Star Trek fans. There's a lot of really good memories there, and I'm glad to see that it's going back to the Rio. I'm glad to see that it's going back at that time of year, and I hope it's successful for them. I am a little worried. I'll be honest with you. I mean, like I said, I have no insider knowledge. I don't, I'm not up on like all the celebrities. I don't know whether they're planning on coming. The Creation website still has, confirmed celebrities going. The thing that raises my alarm bells just a tiny bit is the fact that they have offered for gold and captain's chair ticket holders. They're giving them really big gift certificates for if they hold their reservation until next year. I get them too confused which one's the higher level, but one of them's $100 in convention gift certificate, and the other one's $200. So that's a really big incentive for people to not request a refund and hold that over till next year. That's gonna obviously help with their sort of cash flow while we're all sort of trying to manage things across the pandemic. So I don't know that that's a worrying sign, but clearly somebody at Creation decided that they need to give some kind of incentive to their biggest ticket holders, um, to just let them keep their money for a year. So I don't know. I don't know what the sentiment is. Provided that we have a vaccine and that COVID-19 is just gonzo by then, I think a lot of people will still be wanting to go back to Vegas. So yeah. Right, I'm gonna attempt to catch up in the chat here really quick. Andrew says, "A 55-year mission. Imagine saying that to Dr. McCoy and not getting punched." Yeah. Wes, that's a really good question. Maybe Viacom CBS is going to enter the convention circuit, not sure. I'm like, my first instinct is like, "Pff, no." But I don't write anything off, when it comes to Viacom CBS. They appear to take a strategy that is very broad. So, have you ever heard the term niching down, where you hone your business in order to, um, go strong towards a certain niche? Viacom CBS is like the polar opposite of that, and I think at their scale and the products that they're serving, that works really, really well for them. That's why, like, the whole thing a couple weeks ago about Discovery and having weak ratings on broadcast television, like, who cares? It's all like, you can't take any one thing that Viacom CBS does on its own, because any one thing they do is part of a really broad, sort of far-reaching strategy, um, for how their business is gonna go. I mean, if you think just Star Trek, I mean, if you just take Star Trek content by itself, they've got, like, 8 series in production, and they're all hitting different niches at different times of year, tentpole events or whatever you wanna call it. And that's just the production of those shows. When you talk about distribution, then you're also talking about CBS All Access and Bell Media in Canada and Netflix and Amazon and Paramount Plus, and not to mention things like Prodigy, which is not being published by being published by Nickelodeon, not CBS All Access. So they're and they do things for other companies as well. So I forget the name of the show. Something about a kid president or something. Not Kid President. That's a totally different thing. But they did a show for Disney Plus when Disney Plus launched. They so it wouldn't. Okay, I would be surprised if Viacom CBS said, "We're starting a new division about fan conventions." I would be surprised, but then I would probably very quickly go, "Oh yeah, okay, fine." I'd accept it pretty quickly. Yeah, Viacom CBS may look at Disney and see how much money they made in pre-COVID times. Now, what's interesting is you've heard of this theme park in the UK, right? I don't understand. I have not been doing this as a story because it all right now feels like marketing, like, guff, for want of a better term. It all feels like they're really trying to keep interest going on this project that's happening, but it doesn't seem to be happening very fast, and they haven't really been transparent about how the pandemic has affected their plans. But they have plans for a big amusement park outside of London on the south side, that is going to include Paramount, I believe. It's hard to keep track because, partners keep kind of coming in and going out. And then every couple of months, I see something come up in my feed about, oh, the new progress of this thing. And there was speculation for a while that they might actually do a Star Trek something in there. I actually haven't heard anything specifically about that, but it's one to keep an eye on if you are interested in the idea of a Star Trek theme park beyond that one that's in Germany that's just a roller coaster. Um, I'm sorry, the name of the property or what they're calling it completely escapes me, but it's a big story and they have a big marketing machine, so you should be able to find it if you go and look for that. And who knows? Maybe next time it comes across my feed, I'll do an update just in case anyone was following it. We'll see. Um, all right, so let's move on. Well, actually, before I do that, I just want to remind you, I already said about a Patreon, and I completely forgot to mention again that we still have a special offer on Patreon that goes through the end of the month. So if you join us at the $10.31 level, because Star Trek Discovery, if you join us at that level or above, then I've got a free magnet for you. Along the same lines, we're doing a giveaway, and I don't know if you have all seen it, but I'll show it to you now what we're giving away, which is this bad boy. It's beautiful. It's a lapel pin, so it's like it's not like a comm badge, but it's sort of a decorative lapel pin. It's beautiful. They actually, this is from cufflinks.com, and they actually have two. They have a gold one and a silver one, and they're just I'm gonna buy one for myself because it's so nice. I thought about not giving it away, and then I was like, no, the whole point is to give it away. So we're giving that away. There's a couple of different ways to enter if you want to, and you can learn all about that at dailystartreknews.com/cufflinks. Should be easy to remember. You can enter via Twitter, Instagram, or the newsletter if you don't already have the newsletter. So go and check that out, enter, and hopefully win something. So that's good. Okay, so listen, this is the part where we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery. This is not going to be a review because I don't really do that. I haven't watched it enough times, and also it's yeah. I don't really love serialized television. I have a very short attention span, and I have a lot of stuff that's going on. Serialized TV to me is sometimes it's more obnoxious than anything else. And so Discovery season 2. Let's go back in time for a second. Oh, literally and figuratively. Anyway, last year, 2019. In I think it was the spring that Discovery season 2. I was still on Priority One podcast, which you should go and listen to, by the way, because they're very good. And we were doing weekly recaps of Discovery season 2, and I actually found that really difficult to keep kind of a positive or a balanced outlook. Because I don't really like serialized television, and so when we were kind of doing a review every week, it was actually really hard because you don't have any context of what you're talking about, right? You watch a show and they leave loads of stuff open, and then you spend the whole time speculating about what's going to come next, and I don't. This isn't going to be a review, but I've called it a reaction because it's worth talking about, and it's worth asking you guys what you thought about it. This is going to be the spoilerific part of the show, so if you want to drop off, I will not be offended. Before we get into it, I just want to say that I think CBS might actually have it out for me because they keep dropping stuff on a Friday, and I'm not taking it personally. I promise, I swear. So in today's episode of Daily Star Trek News, I did a piece on Trek Movies piece, on an SFX piece, talking to Alex Kurtzman, who is talking about the shooting schedules for Discovery and Strange New Worlds. And one of my favorite resources that I use is up in Toronto, the IATSE local has a listing of all of the current productions that they have, and it says when they're going to film. And it's said November 2nd forever. And I don't want to like report on that because I'm trying not to be a gossip rag, but why did they drop that today? I did the story, like, whatever. I'm not salty about it. long story short, they have CBS All Access. Star Trek has now finally confirmed that Star Trek Discovery season 4 will begin shooting on November 2nd. That's up in Toronto. There was a really nice video that they put out on social media today with Doug Jones and Sonequa Martin Green. Go and watch it. It's very cute. They're so excited. I was expecting, so Doug Jones talks about like the thing that he's looking most forward to, and I was fully expecting him to say shaving my head because they have to shave his head for the prosthetics, and of course the lockdown he's grown his hair out. So it's always weird to me to see him with hair now, but anyway. So right, let's talk about Discovery season 3, episode 1. I will Oh, Chris is heading off, so bye. Dan is gone already. I feel terrible because Dan hasn't seen it yet. So, on the whole, I like it. I feel like I need to watch it again, actually, and I don't know whether I will or not. I was in a rush to watch it. I watched it at 7 o'clock this morning with the backdrop of the guys fixing the fence out the backyard, and so I might have missed some of the dialogue. So far, I really, really like the new tone. Despite the fact that, we're in a pretty dangerous and difficult situation with Michael Burnham. And even when they were in the sort of, I can't remember the name of the town, the marketplace, which is a pretty dark place and is pretty dangerous. It had more of the feel of Stardust City Rag than it did of previous seasons of Discovery, which was very heavy and depressing. This was a lot more fun. And I really, really appreciate that because I just, everything's so bloody depressing all the time right now. I was kind of afraid that that was going to end up being sad and depressing, and it wasn't. I was really pleased to see that new tone. I will be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of the super, super heavy SFX. And I kind of wonder whether they lent more on SFX, computer generated graphics because of the way that production worked out. I wonder if there would have been more practical effects going on had we not been in lockdown. I don't know. But like everything was a hologram, like everything. Which is cool, but it was like a little overwhelming, and like the weird stasis field that she got in and the just holograms everywhere was a little overwhelming. I found I'm of two minds about the Federation room and books ship. So basically there's no computers, right? Everything kind of like morphs out of nothing. And I don't know how I feel about that. It was unsettling, actually. Adil Hussein, whose character's name I did not catch, but Adil Hussein is a really well-respected Indian actor, and he was just wonderful in this. That whole sequence at the beginning where he's where his little parrot alarm clock, and then all of the bed and everything kind of melts into the floor, and then the desk comes up is really cool. Sahel, okay. Thank you, Earl. I'm just going to call you Earl. That whole sequence was really kind of magical, and all I can think of, I mean, I guess maybe I'm a pessimist. All I can think of is like, what happens when the engine that drives that malfunctions, and you have nothing in your you literally have to sleep on the floor, or like your parrot turns into a lion, or like you can't make the toilet appear, So I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it was really cool. It was really cool to see, and they had a really big challenge ahead of them to go so far into the future, and make it look like we're not in Kansas anymore. And I think they did a relatively good job of that. So there's that. Love the cat. I'm a big fan of Maine Coons. Joseph Brown. I thought he was going to be holographic and not real. I actually thought the same thing, and I'm really glad that he is real. I loved his backstory, and I love the way that they've treated that. My hackles were up a little bit in this, and I had to do some thinking because some of the Some of the rhetoric with which they talked about the Federation was, for me, a little over the top, and it felt a little like what's I don't know what the right word is. I don't wanna say cult-like because I don't think it's that, but it was a little bit over the reverence with which Burnham speaks about the Federation, feels outsized for the universe. I think, it took me out of that moment a little bit. Um, but on the whole, I think it was interesting the dynamic between her and Book, especially as he kind of regards people who believe in the Federation as they're kind of like, religious zealots or um, conspiracy theorists or something. I thought that was um, a good dynamic. And do we think well, here's a question for you guys. So the whole there's a big marketing push around what is the burn. Do you think we've really learned what the burn was, or do you think we'll learn more about it? So the burn presumably is when all the dilithium exploded, right? Um, do you think we're gonna find? I mean, that's a stupid question. Dilithium go boom. Yeah, it's a stupid question. I've watched Discovery before. I have a fairly strong feeling that we will find out, and it will be a driving force of this episode, even if it's a B plot or not episode series, because they don't. Do you remember in season 2 when Saru was like feeling sick and his little ganglia were coming out, and the doctor was like, "Oh, that's weird," and then we were all like, "Wow, that's going to become important later." So they're not very good at concealing things that might be important later. Everything's important. So Dave Takechi says the second they talked about all the dilithium exploding, I thought of the TNG episode Force of Nature. That's the one where they have to protect subspace, isn't it? I wonder that. And I I think it's brave. They have managed to change the rules of the Star Trek universe in a way that works with the Star Trek universe. And that's, I don't think, an easy thing to do. J.J. Abrams changed the rules of the Star Trek universe, and people still give him crap for that. 11 years later. Um, I think that this idea that the dilithium is incredibly rare, and that subspace is accessing subspace is like a difficult thing to do. I think those things changing the universe, I can absolutely accept, and I'm really looking forward to how they use that with the plot going forward. Um, I'm I don't wanna talk too much more about it, because 'cause we're getting close to time, but, I have told you before on this show, I'm not a huge fan of Discovery. I think it can be overdramatic and very dark, and it's not really my cup of tea. After having watched the first episode, I'm very optimistic about what the rest of the series is going to be, and I'm looking forward to the next episode, which is not necessarily how I've felt in previous seasons. So that's a really good sign as far as I'm concerned. Florin, yeah, overwhelming with the SFX and camera work. I agree with the SFX. I would be curious to hear from a producer whether that was all intentional or whether some of that was adapting for the conditions of post production, because it was like I feel like they're setting themselves up to have to do a lot of special effects work for the rest. I hope they can pull back from that a little bit, because I've always been a much bigger fan of practical effects than computer graphics. So we'll see. Earl Grey Trekkie. Hopefully, season 3 is the beard growth season for Discovery. Is that a Deep Space Nine reference? I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. I personally do not intend to grow a beard for Discovery season 3, so um, And Andrew, yes, I agree with you about. Andrew says, I don't like the frantic SFX. I'm old and I can never keep track of who is flying where. Yeah, it can feel a little bit frenetic. It's probably easy for the person who's doing the special effects to tell what's happening, but I remember earlier this week or last week, I was trying to take a screenshot from the trailer. Oh, I know what it was. I was trying to take a screenshot from last week's sneak preview that they did at New York Comic Con of the part where Book is being chased through the debris field. And I actually had a really, really hard time getting a clean shot of anything because the ships were moving so fast that on YouTube, even in HD, they were blurry most of the time. But you know, now they're grounded, so hopefully there'll be a little bit less of that. We'll see. Okay, guys, it's been a lot of fun. I'm just gonna quickly go through and make sure that I haven't forgotten anything here. Oh, Andrew, so Andrew, much earlier up in the chat said he's already more emotionally invested in this story arc so far. And that's a really good point that I completely agree with, actually. I really, for the first 2 seasons, have had a really hard time connecting with any of the characters in Star Trek Discovery. Saru pre-threat ganglia falling off was probably the easiest one to relate to. And then, of course, they changed his character completely, which was, you know, interesting, but probably a mistake. I really like Book. I think it was even in the first episode to take the trope of the sort of the roguish, sort of sexy, cantankerous rogue traitor guy, and then turn that on his head to find out that he's actually, you know, a conservationist. I think that's a really interesting character piece, and you know, there's been a conservation theme throughout a lot of Star Trek Discovery so far, and I am very interested to see what's going to happen when he gets together with Paul Stamets later, because we know that he will. I mean, not like get together, obviously. We know, but you know, there's the issue of the mycelial network and the conservation thereof, and then you have Book, who's naturally conservationist and has this mysterious connection to living things. That is something that I hope we see more of further down the line. So, anyway, I will leave it at that for now. Any final questions just as I wrap up? You can type them in the chat if you like. It just remains for me to say thank you very much. It's been really enjoyable to see all you guys' comments in the chat, and I hope that that was an interesting discussion for you. I appreciate you being here and interacting. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe. There's a button down below somewhere. And I always tell people to hit the little bell that comes up, because then you'll get a notification when we either post the daily show or when we go live. You can find out more about Daily Star Trek News at dailystartreknews.com. It's got links to everything there. And don't forget, we've got a couple special offers on. There's the Patreon special offer, where if you pledge a monthly contribution at $10.31 a month or up, we're giving out free magnets this month. So go check that out, patreon.com/Daily Star Trek News. And then we're also giving away a really cool, I'll show it again because it's very cool. They're giving away a gold Delta Shield lapel pin. I don't know if you can see that. From cufflinks.com. And you can find out how to enter that on dailystartreknews.com/cufflinks. Yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you so much again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. Live long and prosper.